Hello my fellow healers, today we will talk about the campaign changes that update 43 brings us, and especially those changes that impact us as a healers. First we will look at the Necromancer Healer. Necromancer Healer was provided with more sources of major buffs and debuffs from the class skills, and that change would therefore impact how the rest of the healers are using scribing system. The first exciting change is Unnerving Boneyard. Here we get a source of minor vulnerability along with a major breach, and change was made such that each tick of the Boneyard applies both for 4.1 seconds. So now targets don't have to stay in the area of Boneyard to retain major breach, and on top of that they will get minor vulnerability from it. So total duration of the debuff will be 10 seconds plus 4.1 seconds, so it's 14.1 seconds, so you can cast it not as often as you used to, and plus targets don't have to stay in the area, so this will impact the trash. Let's say if you hit something and it moves, it will still be debuffed for some amount of time, so trash will be dying faster. Another super exciting change is Agony Totem is now a source of major cowardice. The minor vulnerability from synergy activation was removed, but it doesn't impact the performance of Agony Totem as a source of defensive buffs and debuffs because, well, minor vulnerability from Totem was very inconsistent because you had to take synergy and then it's just 4 seconds of it. So it was like the worst possible source of minor vulnerability out there. Now it applies major cowardice. It also fears the targets within it as it used to, so it CCs the non-elite targets, and it still provides minor protection as it used to, so we have a defensive buff, defensive debuff, and some offensive component to it as well, damage synergy. Another change that happened is that Intensive Mender, the shorter morph of the Spirit Mender, now heals multiple targets, so it doesn't heal just one, it heals a primary target and another 2 targets in 8 meters radius of that target. So all of the events where you were trying to rely on Intensive Mender to heal you or somebody in particular, and it went ahead and healed completely somebody else, will be now alleviated to some extent because now it will heal 3 targets instead of just 1 target. The change that was made that is sort of a negative change, we cannot generate ultimate out of the air. So as you can see over here in my wizards, I have the setup where I would just summon all of my abilities that produce corpses out of combat, and then used necrotic potency on them to just produce ultimate out of nowhere while we are AFK waiting for the next pull or something like that in the trial, right? So I will not be able to use that setup anymore because those skills will not produce corpses out of combat. So we are now at Scribing Altar, and let's check how Necromancer Changes will impact how we scribe skills. So first thing first, Alfred's Contingency was optioned to either source protection or minor vulnerability from. Now that Necromancers have source of minor vulnerabilities that is AoE and is pretty consistent and easy to maintain, we will not have to choose between this or protection, and we will go for protection, Gladiator Tenacity over here, and damage shield or healing here. Now another thing that we used to have is Willed Soul. We would scribe for cowardice sometime to source major cowardice from, but now we don't need to do that anymore if we have a totem, so we could put instead of cowardice something else on Willed Soul, so it could be a vitality or major resolve. For example, when you're healing Ziliesa and you use Willed Soul as a source of pull, so this is the combination that I use currently, it would be Druid Resurgence, pull and cowardice, so the little adds don't hit me as much as I'm stacking them. But now I can switch it to major resolve instead. Okay, so we have resolve over here because I can source cowardice from the totem, and now I will be even more tanky against those little adds because on my side, on Zilies's side, I don't have source of resolve from the Warden Healer because we are separated by the mirror, right? And we're now looking at our Nightblade Healer, and Nightblade Healer received minor changes to where the skills are residing in their skill lines. So Veiled Strike was moved from Shadow skill line to the Assassination skill line, and its first skill in this line. Assassin's Blade used to be here, it's now a 3rd skill in this line. And there used to be blur in that spot, and blur is now in shadow skill line, which make a little bit more sense. How does it impact Nightblade healers? Well, as a Nightblade healer, we need to have at least one of those skills from Assassination skill line on our bar, and we need to crit on that bar in order to proc our class Miner, which is Miner Savagery, so it's a hemorrhaging passives, right? And in order to do that, we have to have at least one skill from here on the bar, and it's better to have one skill from that line on each of the bars, because then it procs just more consistently and more reliably in combat. So now, if you ever used blur, I personally didn't, but maybe you did. To do that, you cannot use it anymore, and you will rely on the skills that we commonly use as Nightblade healers, which is Lotus Fan. It's still the same very good skill to use, or Merciless Resolve for that passive weapon and spell damage that we used, or Incapitating Strike in our ultimate slot. There was also one passive change that gives more reliable source of major resolve for Nightblade. So when you used to cast a shadow ability, you would get major resolve for a short amount of time. It was 3 to 6 seconds per level of that skill. Now it's 6 or 12 seconds per level. When we cast Refreshing Path, we get 12 seconds of major resolve. It doesn't impact us in organized raiding, but it does impact us in, let's say, PvP or in dungeons. And another great change is that Funnel Health, Morph of Strife, now received a buff to how many targeted hits, so it hits 3 nearby allies instead of 2 as it used to, so it's closer to radiating regen and power, as developers say in patch notes. So this is a great option when we are doing 4-man content and we want to do some damage and plus heal at the same time. This is going to be a great source of that type healing. So now we add Scribing Altar again, and that is because some of the scribing skills got changed as well. So one of the changes that is interesting to me, but I'm not sure for now how often we will use that, is that healing from Vault initial healing tick is now equivalent to Combat Prayer. So it's equivalent to AoE spammable heal. But you can scribe it to have additional healing over time, which is also a pretty hefty number of, here I have my Rojo set up and I'm getting tooltips of 9k and 7k, which is a good amount, so 7k over 10 seconds. And on top of it, all the miners are now lasting for 20 seconds when you apply them. That seems like a good option. I just need to figure out where it could be useful. Some of the grimoires were increased in tooltips, so focus scripts are 3.3% stronger and signature scripts are 6.6% stronger, so it will just increase the potency of scribe skills and they will be even more reliable source of either damage or healing as compared to what they were before, so they can compare to fully leveled and morphed skills of the existing skill lines. And the final impactful change is change to Trample. So Trample is now a source of major heroism that is selfish, so it only applies to you. So what we can do here is put magic damage on it, so it will cost us 2.5k match, so we will be able to sustain it. If our magic sustain is low, we can do physical damage and it's gonna cost us 2.7k stam, right? So let's pick Magicka for now. Then in here we have a bunch of options. Either use Assassin's Misery or Lingering Torment or Warrior Opportunity, depending on where you use it. So Warrior Opportunity is good if you hitting stack of, let's say, 10 targets. So it's a large trash pack. You hit stack of 10 targets at once. It will give a good boost, right? If it's Lingering Torment, that's an option to use as a dot and Vas for Zens. So it's a 20 seconds dot plus source of major heroism. So as a front kiter, you will produce even more ultimate. Or we can do Assassin's Misery and we can apply Concussion, Sundered, and Hemorrhage. So that's bleeding. That's Sundered also comes along with minor breach, and Concussion comes along with minor vulnerability. We will precast it as we go into the trash pack. Now we have 10 seconds of major heroism. Then the horse hits, it applies all those debuffs, and people dump their ults on a trash pack and it just melts immediately. And beyond that, let's say 4 seconds of all those debuffs that you have, it might be even irrelevant because trash pack is already gone. So I think that's a very good option to scribe it for a healer. with Assassin's Misery here if we're gonna use it as a pre-buff for Trash. That's all the information I got for today. Hope you are enjoying update 43 as much as I do. I am definitely excited to play a little bit differently on my Necromancer healer for the unstoppable progression, and overall I feel like it's a very nice balance of combat changes that are subtle but impactful and that make our gameplay a little bit better. If you found this video informative, please like and subscribe, and I wish you best of luck in your Tamriel trial adventures.